And welcome back to part 2 of the late season garden tour here in Cheyenne, Wyoming with Cheyenne Wyoming Urban Gardener. And this is Debbie. So this is the part 2, and we're going into where the rest of the zucchini are. These are the dark green zucchini. And as you can see, they have not slowed down. And the leaves have really started suffering because, well, it's at the end of the season. Anyway, I had to pause that for a moment and take my dogs in the house because they were just kind of running around. Anyway, this is a zucchini, and we're kind of getting what's called rust on the leaves, and this is just basically from a lot of heat, age, a whole bunch of things, and now we're starting to get some downy mildew. Again, downy mildew, you'll hear a lot of people talk about it being a disease. It's not really a disease. It's just when the plants start getting a lot older, getting towards the end of the season, and they're just kind of puttering out. So it's still producing, and they will still produce even though they've got the downy mildew on them. You can see one right there, and I've got a nice large one way back in the back, and I have some gray zucchini that are coming on. By far the gray zucchini have been the slowest to produce, but I got them in a lot later, so I can't really give a thorough review on those. Sunflowers are at the end of their season as well. You can see all the petals have died, and some of the center section of the flowers is starting to fall, and still have some more that are blooming right now, but you can see some way back there, but they're pretty much at end of season. Got a couple more bloomed here and some over there. But anyway, all of the zucchini and yellow straight neck squash still doing wonderfully, still producing like crazy, getting some downy mildew, getting to the end of season, getting some rust on the leaves. So it won't be long until they'll stop producing altogether. They'll keep producing really until it just gets so late in the season. Sorry about that. It was a plane going overhead. We're in the path of the airport. So they'll keep producing up until the very end. It just won't be as much as often, and they'll be a little bit slower than they were in the past. Peppers, I have pretty much harvested everything out of this section for the peppers. Still have some more coming on. I was surprised they bloomed and started producing more. So we've still got some giant Marconi in there, and we still have a purple pepper in there. So they're still producing, and they even have some more on the ones that look like they have nothing. They're just little tiny guys right now. So I don't think they'll actually do anything. They'll probably get killed off by the cold, but at least they're trying. So there you go. Green beans still producing like crazy. I have already picked a third run going into a fourth run of green beans at this point. I'm beginning to think that this row of green beans is pretty much enough for us because I've already canned so much, and we've eaten some quote unquote fresh, etc. So, and I've added them to salads and all kinds of things. Peas are just about finished. They're also getting the downy mildew as well. And you can see through there that they're just kind of dying out. They have produced and produced and produced. We have picked 6 or 7 times now off of these guys. And I gave my stepdaughter a whole bunch of peas. I just gave her a bucket and I said, go pick them. So she picked a quart out of this. So they're just not producing as much, but they're still trying to bloom. They're still trying to produce, and you would not believe that there's actually 5 rows of peas in here because I planted them as Suburban Homesteader Wyoming / Arizona suggested at 2 inches apart and just kept planting them. So we have 5 rows in here, and I'm going to actually expand it probably to 10 rows next season because we still needed more peas. Acorn squash has spread all the way out into the peas. I do have an acorn squash on it that's pretty large. We had a staggering zucchini that came on. Surprisingly, this was a row that I had planted in zucchini originally. Didn't come up, so then I just went ahead and planted peppers and fennel in here, and then all of a sudden we had a zucchini come up. So this one is blooming right now. We'll probably produce a couple of zucchini before it just completely dies off. Still got peppers like crazy on some of the shorter, smaller plants. These are the Lunchbox Peppers that you get out of a package. I had saved the seeds out of some of those and got them started. So these were not organic seeds. They were just regular package of peppers that I had picked up and had started. Calendula doing amazing. There are blooms everywhere, and there were not that many plants in here, but oh my goodness, have they ever just produced like crazy. Oranges and yellows. I did not see any other colors than the oranges and yellows. Zinnias had started out with reds and whites and purples and pinks, but then just kind of ended up being all pink. So that was really weird. So this is all of the zinnias, and there's a couple different varieties you can see in there. And there's still loads of blooms that are coming on, and these will continue to bloom as long as the weather holds out and does not get below freezing. So 32 degrees. So you can see all of these blooms in here. And of course I still have some zinnias over there in the back. You kind of see them poking out, some orange. And I've got some zinnias back here that have not bloomed yet. They've got heads on them to bloom, but just haven't as yet. And there's only a few of them in there. The cress is still going strong. And rhubarb's still looking great. I have already harvested quite a few rhubarb stalks off of these, so they're kind of getting spindly now because I have done that, but they'll come back out strong next season. This tomato, this is a yellow pear tomato that I had planted on top of concrete with just a little bit of dirt, and this one has been by far the most productive, prettiest tomato that I have had. It has produced and produced and produced and produced and is still producing, still beautiful. It only has a little bit of some yellowing right here, which is just late season yellowing, and I can just come in here and trim this off, and this plant will still look amazing, as you can see. Finally did get some savory going, which kind of spilled out of the pot and has started blooming. So that is savory, and we had finally got that started. Roses still doing amazing. Then we got the yellow, and this is supposed to be lavender, but it kind of turns pink after it gets older, and the red. So I need to get in here and deadhead these because they have more blooms that are coming on. This rose, the yellow one, has turned out to be a lot bigger than the other ones. I'm not real sure why, but you can see the blooms are a lot bigger. So I'm thinking this one might be actually a standard rose that they just kind of tried to fake out and make it like it was a mini rose. The super sauce tomatoes, they are brown as can be, but they are still producing tomatoes. They still have tomatoes in here everywhere. Still waiting for them to redden up, and we'll take those in, but you can see there are tomatoes hanging all through this section. Largest plant still has the most, and it's still producing. And tomatillos have been a surprising amazement. We have had several batches of these tomatillos already that have fallen and are ready, and I've got one ready right now. You can see right here. When they split open like that is when they are ready, and the husk gets kind of papery. But you can actually, I found out, my own personal experiment, as long as they have a tomatillo in there that fills out the husk, like say this one, if you pull it, it will go ahead and turn papery and get ready in the house. So they're just like tomatoes. You can pull them early as long as this husk is filled completely out, and they will do exactly like they did on the vine. And I have also noticed that sometimes they will fall without having anything in the husk to the ground, and they will continue to grow inside of the husk. And I just leave them laying on the ground until they turn yellow, and then I pick them up and they're filled out. So kind of an amazing feat with these tomatillos. And you can see this particular tomatillo has spread all the way out to here now. So I have loads and loads of tomatillos on these guys. And this one actually turned out to be a different variety from the other two. This one is more of a red stripe variety. And one of the things I really, really enjoyed about these tomatillos is I don't understand why people don't eat them raw more often. Because they taste fruity and meaty, and they're just delicious, whether they're green or whether they are turning yellow and they're what's considered a little bit overripe. They're still just delicious. So I'm very, very surprised with these tomatillos. I will grow them again next season, and I had said I probably wouldn't because the plants are so big. I'm just going to try to carve out a section in the north side and see if we can get some tomatillos going over there. Black Creme tomatoes, I am very disappointed with. They just I know that the tomatillos shaded them, but for the most part they died out. I have a couple of tomatoes on one black Creme over here that's still alive. Otherwise, they have just not really been very good. They've picked up every disease that they came across, and just not happy with them. So we'll not do the black Creme again. I'm going to stick with, here's a shocker, the Oxheart tomato. I'm just going to try to get the Oxheart tomatoes out a little bit earlier in the season because they do take a long time to get ready. But we have eaten a couple of Oxheart tomatoes off of these plants, and oh my goodness, I cannot begin to say enough. The flavor was mild and amazing. Very, very, as far as when I say mild, like acidity level is very low. They're a very meaty tomato. They would make an amazing tomato to make paste out of, and also just for fresh eating. And they are absolutely delicious. And I will grow these again next season because they were just so amazing. And they are, once they start producing, they produce like crazy. And let me show you. I'm going to walk around the beans here, and you can see all of these tomatoes now hanging in these vines. Look at this. There are tomatoes everywhere. Now, unfortunately, I'm going to have to pull these before they're ready because it's going to start getting too cold for the tomatoes and the vines will start dying off. But you can just see once they got started, there was no slowing them down. I probably have 50, 60 tomatoes on these 3 plants right now. Just amazing. And this one actually had turned brown and it came back out beautifully and started producing like crazy. So loads and loads and loads of Oxheart tomatoes in here, and they just keep getting bigger. And I've seen some pictures of these plants getting 10, 15 feet tall and just producing like crazy. Unfortunately, it wouldn't happen here just because we are just too far north, and I'm really pushing the limit on growing Oxhearts in zone 5A, 5B, but we're kind of in the middle. So anyway, loads and loads of acorn squash still going on. Artichokes, just not going to happen this season. They're beautiful. You can see the artichokes back there, but they got shaded out by the acorn squash, so unfortunately they're just not going to make anything this season. But I'm going to move them back to where they were last season and have more plants next season coming up. This yellow pear tomato has also produced like crazy. It just has produced a little bit slower. I don't know if it's because it's in a pot. I really don't think so, because this vine is actually the biggest one. I just think it's just a plant that decided it didn't want to produce like crazy. It did in the very beginning, loads and loads and loads. And now it's just basically producing 2, 3, 4, which I've already harvested this morning off of it. But usually this is about the cluster that you get all along the vine. So still doing wonderfully. Produces enough, just a little bit slower than the other one. Not happy with the German Queen. We've talked about this in the past in some of the videos. Just now starting to get tomatoes on these German Queens. I've got 3 plants. 2 of them are here and the other one is in the herb garden. The herb garden one has no tomatoes whatsoever, and these 2 have, I think, 3 tomatoes between them. So not happy with those at all. Will not grow these again. These came from Walmart. They were basically some tomatoes that were left over, and after the hailstorm I was looking for tomatoes and picked these up. So not happy with them, won't do them again. Red curry squash I've already harvested from. I think I've got 1 or 2 left that need to be harvested once they turn red. Didn't get as many as I thought I was going to get, which I'm kind of sad about. Only had 5 large ones and then a couple of small ones. And I had 12 plants in here, so I should have had way more than that. So was not happy with the red curry this year, but we love them so much we'll just continue to grow them. And hopefully next season will be a better season for them. And I've noticed that they kind of don't like the heat as much as some of the other squash, and that could have been a factor this season because we just had temperatures that were so high during the summer. These green beans have been still producing like crazy. You can see the green beans hanging in there right now. I have picked twice off of these in this week alone, and picked all of them then, and they bloomed and produced more in a couple of days, and then a couple of days again. So they are just producing like crazy, and there's only about maybe 6 or 7 of the plants still alive at this point, because most of them have died off now, because that's what they do. Once they produce like crazy, then they kind of die off, and you can see that one of them did die off. You can see the remnants of the plant here, and I'm letting a few of them go ahead and go completely to seed so I can save the seed for next season. And that's what I'll do with this run as well. And I hope that we don't get a frost, so that way they'll finish on out. But most of these I will pick because I don't need a whole lot of plants in this section. I always plant this with beans just because this is what these trellises were for. I may move them around next season, but I may not. I may actually just move this trellis over and make it a little bit longer, and I'll be moving the cucumbers into containers. So for next season, I won't be growing cucumbers here again. But was a little surprised. I got somehow or the other, I got a lemon cucumber seed that was mixed into some of my other seeds. That little guy has produced like crazy. We love the cucumbers. We're going to grow these again. You can see that they are just all along the vine, and they seem to be tolerating the cooler temperatures a lot better than some of the other cucumbers. And there's one that's just about ready to pick right now. So very happy with these little guys. We will grow them again. The flavor is amazing. Still have other cucumbers in here that are producing as well. You can see one of the cucumbers here, one of the longer ones, and I did have a couple of the longer green and spineless varieties, burpless cucumbers, come on, that are kind of down in the middle of the tomatillos and are producing. So we'll have those as well for fresh eating. I have loads of cucumbers that I could process right now for dill pickles. We've just been kind of slow at it because we have loads of pickles in the fridge right now, so we're not too worried about it. So I don't know if I'll get around to it or not. We've just been kind of eating them a lot fresh, and they've been delicious. So anyway, did plant this whole section over here in radishes after I pulled out the Kennebec potatoes, and you can see that they are there. So we're going to go into a part 3 of this video.